people a tremendous debt, and not only the Vietnamese. So many were killed, but many more would have been killed if the French chiefs had been able to carry out their strategy. And what was especially preventing them from doing that was
we do indeed. I include Dan Ellsberg in the people we owe that debt to. I want to get a final comment from Ray McGovern here.
Yeah, thanks, Dan, and thanks for your leaking. 68 was a really important year. As you pointed out, Dan, LBJ was saying that he actually said at the middle of March in 68, right after Tet, that he would have given Westmoreland the 206,000 more troops if it weren't for those damn leaks. Well, you know, I've never seen anybody admit that in such cogent terms. What I'd like to just say is, since we're honoring investigative reporting this weekend, and we talked about Cy Hirsch, and I'm glad that he was mentioned earlier on, I just want to say that there's another vignette here that was mentioned just elliptically that is very, very important. You heard that less than half of the casualties, that means less than 58,000 troops, U.S., and less than half, McNamara says 3 million Vietnamese were killed. So less than half of that, okay, would have been spared if Nixon didn't win. Now, had Nixon win, how might he have been prevented from winning? Well, you know, there are some good investigative reporters, and one guy's name is Robert Parry, and I'm proud to work for him. So he goes to the LBJ library, right? And he says, hey, I want to see those secret papers, you know, from Rostow. And the guy said, how did you know about those secret papers? He said, come on, put them on the table. So the archivist goes and gives him this envelope, do not open for 50 years. It's Rostow's secret papers. And what does it show? It shows that Nixon and his campaign, with the help of Anna Chennault, had persuaded the South Vietnamese not to go to Paris before the election. It was all set. They were going to start this negotiation in earnest, and Nixon and the campaign and Anna Chennault. And how did LBJ know about that? Because J. Edgar Hoover had tapped the South Vietnamese embassy, and he had the records. So he comes 2 days before the election, and he says, Mr. President, you should know this. You should know this. Nixon and his campaign are subverting Vietnam's peace talks, and this is very important. And this is where cowardice comes in. This is where ego comes in. This is where wise men come in. Clark Clifford? Oh, Mr. President, you better keep this secret because if Nixon wins, he'll be debilitated from the day one. My God. And LBJ says, well, yeah, I suppose you're right. LBJ didn't give her, my NSA folks have this wonderful thing, a HRA, they call it, a hairy rat's ass. He didn't care about that, you know, about this stuff, okay? So he had given up, he didn't give a damn that another half of 58,000 folks and another half of whatever it is, 1.5 million Vietnamese would perish. He was out of there. So it's a very, very, very sad commentary. Now, how many people know this? Well, very few. It was alluded to here because Oliver and Peter checked with Bob Perry. But that's the premium on reporting. That's what we're missing today. And of course, you need good leakers to make that happen. And again, hats off to you, Dan, for leaking early enough to have made this possible. And bad news for the people who work with Nixon and Anna Chennault and LBJ for not just standing up and say, look, this sounds late in the campaign, but J. Edgar Hoover has just given me this. Everybody trusted J. Edgar Hoover then. Ironically, yes. But that would have, in my view, that would have clearly eliminated Nixon from being president.
Two very fast points here. One, there's been a study done at Harvard, and it's a number that even McNamara himself admitted to, which was an estimate of deaths in Vietnam at 3.8 million, and that's not counting Laos and Cambodia. The other point, just to bring the topic of this conference back in, and the reason that Peter Kuznick suggested episode 7 as the one we should watch, was because the natural environment of Vietnam was utterly destroyed, never to recover. And environmentalists, people who care about the environment, people, the movement for our Earth, ought to be talking about Vietnam and the horrors of Vietnam and the tragedy and the lessons of Vietnam and getting Vietnam history right just as much as the peace movement. Yeah. You guys have been wonderful all day. We're going to have all day tomorrow. Can we thank Ray McGovern and Dan Ellsberg for joining us here? Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. Thanks.
I'm sorry, we have to get out of this building. We have a time limit here. I apologize for that.